Hello everyone. In this session we are going to study regarding the sedimentation process in water treatment. Now up till now, right from intake well, jack well, rising main, we have seen the aeration process. Thereafter also we have seen regarding the coagulation and flocculation process. Now today we are discussing regarding the sedimentation process. Now, what is sedimentation process and what is the location of its in the water treatment plant? After the source water has been coagulated and flocculated, it is ready for the sedimentation. So, in earlier sessions we have seen how the this coagulation and flocculation is carried out. Then, in spite of that, even after coagulation and flocculation, it is quite possible that small particles in the water, those may still present in the water and which is required to settle down. Now here in the figure you can see from a water source, after the primary treatment, right, then by using the required the pumping system, it is carried to the coagulation and flocculation unit. Okay, if possible pre-chlorination is also carried out, and thereafter the sedimentation basin is there. And remember, the next after sedimentation, the water will be provided to the filtration unit. Now today we are discussing this sedimentation unit. Now what is the objective of sedimentation? To separate solids from liquid using the force of gravity. In sedimentation, only suspended solids are removed. Sedimentation used in water and wastewater treatment plant. Okay. So sedimentation, that process that can be used in the both the systems. What are the various applications of in the water treatment? Settling of coagulated and flocculated waters prior to filtration, settling of coagulated and flocculated waters in a softening plant, settling of the treated waters in an iron and manganese removal plant. So these are the different applications are there in the water treatment processes. Application in the wastewater treatment also, there also sedimentation required, but today we are concentrating on in the water treatment. So it is in grit removal, suspended solid removal of primary clarifier, biological floc removal in activated sludge. Okay, this flow diagram you can see from the river water, from the intake it is brought to the screening unit. Okay, coagulation and the flocculation carried out, and this is the sedimentation unit. Before providing the water to the filtration unit, sedimentation is carried out. So there you can see after sedimentation, filtration is there, disinfection, storage and distribution. Okay, so it is necessary to understand what is the settling velocity, what are the various aspects, theory of the settling. So all these aspects are associated with the sedimentation. Now you can see a pictorial view of a rectangular sedimentation tank. Okay, you can see this, these are the length you can see. So these are the rectangular sedimentation tank where the water is given, you can see detention period, so that the particles will settle down. Okay, you can see this this actually sedimentation tank is there, and this is in you can see maintenance process, washing is carried out there. So you can see at bottom the sludge will settle down, and you can see here these are the supernatant water will be removed from this, right? So this is a rectangular sedimentation tank. This is the view inside the sedimentation tank. Okay, then this is a circular sedimentation tank. This is also So this is a rotating unit is there, right? So to mix up the water, or sometimes if it is necessary, or it is kept still. Okay, this is a rectangular circular sedimentation tank. So it is the pictorial view of that you are observing. Okay, this is the inside that when the tank is empty. This is the rotor unit is there. So when this tank is full, the water which is the supernatant water, which is clear water, okay, you can see this how the water is taken to the filtration unit. After this, this water is conveyed to the filtration unit. Now again a view is there in the rectangular horizontal flow sedimentation tank. Okay, this is called as a horizontal flow sedimentation tank. Okay, this is a typical inboard weir arrangement to increase the weir length. Various weirs are provided here. You can see types of weirs are there. These are the weirs. Now you can see this clear water is coming here. Okay, these are the sedimentation tanks. These are the sedimentation tank. The water which is clear, that is arriving in this channel, and it is brought to the filtering unit. Same thing is here. Okay, this is the weir present, and the water is from this that will be conveyed to the filtration unit. Okay, then in the sedimentation, now we will discuss regarding the various process in the filtration unit. Sedimentation, before the filtration unit, the sedimentation is why it is carried out, because sedimentation is the gravitational accumulation of solids at the bottom of a fluid, that may be air, water. Okay, so particles are settled down in the sedimentation unit. Now what are the types of settling? Now there are 4 types of sedimentations are there: discrete settling, flocculent settling, hindered settling, and compression. Now these are the, you can see the particle, you can see the velocity travel in the 3 various types are there in the discrete settling, flocculent settling, and hindered settling. So the particles in the discrete settling, the particles are, you can see the quantity is less. So accordingly that we will see one by one, this discrete, what is flocculent and hindered. Okay, types of sedimentation. If you see in the discrete settling, individual particles settle independently. It occurs when there is a relatively low solids concentration. As I told that the particle present in the sedimentation tank, those are less and they settle down independently. In case of flocculent settling, individual particles stick together into clumps called as flocs. This occurs when there is a great solid concentration and chemical and biological reactions alter particle surfaces to enhance the attachment. Okay, so these are the flocs are there. In the hindered settling, the concentration is great enough to inhibit water movement. Water must move in spaces between the particles. So when the density of the particle is more, then it is called as a hindered particle settling. And in the compression settling occurs when particles settle by compression the mass below. So when the quantity is very much high of the particles, so in this compression settling is occurring. Okay, these are the various places you can see the discrete particle settling, flocculent settling, hindered, or it is called as a zone settling, and you can see finally when the dense is there, it is a compression settling. This is also one of the way to show these 4 types. Now regarding the sedimentation basin, now the sedimentation that may be tank may be circular, rectangular, or square. right? Now in the circular tank, 15 to 300 feet diameter or 16 feet depth is there. Typical sizes are 35 to 150 diameter and 10 to 14 feet depth. If you see the square sedimentation, 35 to 200 feet width and 6 to 9 feet depth, that tank is there. In rectangular tank, depend upon the sludge removal mechanism is provided, freeboard is necessary, and 1 to 1.25 feet for circular, and for the square tank, that the freeboard is necessary for the overflow. You can see. Now you can see once again the settling of particles from a suspension depends on, this is a theory, remember. Now characteristics of particles and concentration of the particles in the suspension. Now discrete particles whose size, shape and specific gravity do not change with time. Then flocculating particles, the particles whose surface properties are such that they aggregate upon contact, thus changing in size, shape and perhaps specific gravity which is in contact. Dilute suspension, suspension in which the concentration of particles is not significant to cause significant displacement of water as they settle, or in which the particles will not be close enough for the velocity field interference to occur. Concentrated suspensions, the suspension in which the concentration of particles is too great to meet conditions mentioned for a dilute suspensions. Now these four types of settling, you can say the theory of settling, so that can be expressed in the various examples and the you can say process. The settling of the discrete, first one is the type 1 settling, which is a discrete type settling. Settling of the discrete particles in the dilute suspension. Particles have no tendency to flocculate. They settle as individual entities and there is no significant interaction with neighboring particles. For example, it is made for the removal of grit, sand in the water and wastewater treatment also. Type 2, flocculant settling. Settling of flocculant particles in dilute suspensions. As the particles settle and collides with other particle, the sizes of particles and their settling velocity increases. Now this example is given the removal of the suspended solution in the primary sedimentation tanks in the wastewater treatment plant and settling of chemically coagulated water. Type 3, hindered settling, or it is also called as a zone settling. Settling of intermediate concentration of flocculant particles. Particles are so close together that interparticle forces are able to hold them in a fixed position relative to each other, and mass of the particle settles as a zone at a constant velocity. Now, what is the example? That a biological floc removal in a secondary settling basins of the wastewater treatment plant. Then type 4, compression settling. Settling of the particle that are of a such high concentration that the particles touch each other, and settling can occur only by compression which takes place from the weight of the particle. An example, you can see that at the bottom of the deep secondary clarifier in the sludge thickening you can say process. Now sedimentation tank, if you see, it can be divided into the 4 different functional zone. Now if the tank is there, first one is the inlet zone, settling zone, sludge zone and outlet zone. Now in this, all these, remember, we have to understand the settling theory very much. Okay, so if you see the cross section, initially the inlet zone is there, these are the baffles which are created, then this is settling zone and this sludge zone is there, to this will be removed afterwards, and the water, clear water, you can see these are the vias provided here, so water is taken to the next unit. Now inlet zone, what is the inlet zone? It should be it should disseminate the influent energy, distribute the flow properly, it should mitigate the density of current, then minimize the sludge blanket disturbance, right. Inlet structures are designed to uniformly distribute the influent suspension over cross section of the settling zone. For the rectangular basin, full width inlet channels effective spreading of the flow introduce a vertical velocity component into the sludge happen that may resuspend the sludge. So proper inlet zone is provided such that it should properly distribute the water, right. Inlet channels with the submerged orifices. Okay, so orifices you know that for sedimentation of tank followed by the flocculation, width of flocculation basin and width of the settling tank. So these are two important points which are taken in the consideration. Now depth of the inlet channel is kept as the depth of the flocculator basin. Pipe connection is carried out between the flocculation unit and the sedimentation. Low velocity in the pipe, settling of the floc, high velocity in the pipe, breakage of the floc. So these are the various aspects which are associated with this. Then permissible flow velocity to maintain the floc suspension, it is 0.15 to 0.6 meter per second. And if the sedimentation tank does not adjoin a flocculator, inlet channels with the submerged orifices do not extend down the full depth of the tank. So we are going to see how it is designed afterward. For circular tanks with the radial flow, to achieve this radial flow, pattern influent is introduced at the center, in the center of the tank or around the periphery of the tank. Now how the water is supplied, how it is, it's called a central feed. Water enters a circular well designed to distribute the flow equally in all directions. Now diameter of the feed wheel is generally 15 to 20% of the tank diameter, and depth of the tank is 1 to 2.5 meter. Velocity through the orifices on a feed well is 0.075 to 0.15 meter per second. So during the design we will see all these aspects. Entrance point, that is also associated with suspended from the bridge, and it is encased in the concrete beneath the tank. Now what is the settling zone? It depends upon the various design parameters. For example, settling characteristics of the suspended matter. So in the settling zone, the settling theory that must be understood, and that we were going to study in the coming lectures. So settling characteristics of the suspended matter: surface loading, which is also called as the overflow rate, width and width by the length ratio or diameter, and detention time. Okay, for how much time the water is stored in that tank. Then sludge zone. Okay, from the bottom it is generally removed. In the rectangular bottom, the bottom is slightly sloped to facilitate the sludge scraping. A pair of endless conveyor chain bridge type mechanism is provided to drag that sludge. Continuously push the settled material into sludge hopper, where it is pumped out periodically. The sludge is removed. If the water quantity is huge, the sludge will be also developed, that will also more in quantity. So continuous removal is necessary. Motion of the scraper, that it should be adjusted properly. Momentarily resuspend lighter particles a few centimeters above the scraper bed. Excessive horizontal velocity, for the case of a rectangular basin, move this material towards the outlet zone. So proper conveyance is necessary. The sludge is removed, the slope is given, so that these particles can be settled particles can be removed easily. Now again, sometimes to prevent the problems in this sludge area, so these horizontal velocities are maintained. 9 meter per hour for a light flocculent suspension, 36 meter per hour for heavier discrete suspension, and the mechanism is properly bridge type mechanism is provided, travels up and down the tank. One or more scraper blades are suspended from the bridge. So for the proper this mechanism provides, so we are going to study this afterwards, but this mechanism is provided to properly remove the sludge. In the circular tanks, the bottom of the circular tank is sloped at the center, you know that also, in the form of an inverted cone, and the sludge is scraped to a relatively small hopper located near the center of the tank. Now the very important is that the velocity of the scraper, which is the important parameter in the design, which is maintained so that there is no hindrance in the sedimentation process. You can see velocity of this resuspension of the settled particle, it is less than 5 mm, remember. Then particles, especially particle of the side. So these velocity parameters, those are important in the circular tank. Traveling bridge and the sludge suction headers and pumps. Generally this traveling bridge and this proper, if the synchronization is there, if it is not properly maintained, so there will be problem in this process. So all these things should be synchronized properly, so that the proper sedimentation takes place. Now in the outlet zone, the weir or channels, weir channels are used, as we have seen earlier. Large weir loading, resuspension of the particles settle near the effluent launders. Effluent weirs placed as far as the inlet as possible to increase the weir length, that is to decrease the weir loading. Double-sided weirs can be used, that we have seen, so that the water can be cannot from the center channel, right? And typical 90-degree V notches are used, metal plates are provided, so that the water can be supernatant water can be brought to in the channel. Now this may be placed at the opposite end of the rectangular basin. Very important thing is that you should convey the water through the entire width of the tank, through the length of the tank. If the weir loading causes the required weir length to be greater than the tank width, the channel may be extended to the length of 1/3 of the basin length. The Reynolds number is important here, so I can say, and we are also going to see this particular design, in that how this is maintained, that we can see around the perimeter of the center feed tank for the feed circular tank, and position is there at the center of the peripheral feed circular tank. Now this is only the, you can say, the introductory information of the sedimentation tank. What are the various types of the sedimentation tank, what are its applications, but design of the this sedimentation tank of the variation. But before that, in the coming lecture we will first understand what is the settling theory of sedimentation tank. Okay, without understanding the settling theory, we cannot design any sedimentation tank. And for every particular tank, that may be circular, that may be rectangular, that may be a square, this settling theory is very important to proper function the sedimentation tank. So friends, in coming lectures we are focusing on the settling theory and the design aspects of the sedimentation tank. Thank you very much for joining.